What's going on YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my DC comic book reviews. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Batman and Robin issue number 13. This one is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Juan Ferreira. And this is it. This is the final issue of Joshua Williamson's run on Batman and Robin. Now, I was really enjoying a lot of what Williamson did with Damian's character for the past couple of years. You got to flashback to some of the early days of me covering DC comic book stuff on the channel. At least the first comic book reviews I started covering during that Glass Thompson run. And as a fan of Damian, that was a really tough thing to kind of get through, because it felt like everything that the character had built up to that point was just constantly just being regressed, basically turning him to a villain, because I think that's one of the plans DC had, where they wanted to make him one of the big bads of their whole 5G initiative. But thankfully that was just kind of thrown out the window, and Damian was in a very bad place as a character before Williamson came in and really took him over. Now, Peter J. Tomasi kind of wrote something very briefly in Detective Comics beforehand, and you can go back to some of the earlier stuff on my channel and kind of check some of that out. Not super early days, but when I started covering some other DC comic book related stuff. But yeah, you can see kind of the change and shift in the character to kind of where he is now, at peace, no longer fighting with his father and having more friends. Now, there's still a few unresolved plot lines, I feel like. I mean, we got the Bane stuff, so that's one for sure. Still need him to confront kind of his old Teen Titans. That's kind of the last lingering thing that's really left to kind of cover from the damage of what that Teen Titans run did to his character. But I do appreciate a lot of what Williamson did for the character. Like I said, creating new Rogues Gallery, doing some fun storylines with the Mortal Kombat thing, and ultimately kind of helping him make peace with the rest of his family and finding some semblance of closure with some of the different characters. And now he's in a much better place for Philip Kennedy Johnson to kind of take him and kind of push things to the next level, hopefully, and give us some really good stuff. So I do, like I said, I appreciate what Williamson did. Not everything worked, and I think some of the storylines could have been a bit stronger. But compared to where the character was at before he took over, he did a lot of good for Damian's character. So it's going to be sad to see him go, but I'm kind of ready for the next creative team. So this one, at the end of the last issue, we saw Damian, who was basically transformed into Bane Damian, and that was just kind of something that was done kind of last second with Vengeance, who shot him with that. We also have a lot of this issue about Damian kind of flash forward a bit. I know the storyline's going to wrap itself up quickly because new creative team comes and jumps on next month. So it did feel a little bit quick, how we got through this thing. But yeah, Damian kind of became basically juiced up Damian. I do find it kind of funny how the first thing my ID card says is Damian is one of the greatest fighters in the world, and now he's super buff. Not oh, they've turned Damian into a monster, oh my gosh, he's so awesome, and now he's also super buff. I kind of got a little bit of a laugh out of that one. But yeah, so he's there, he's ready to break Bane. Batman kind of gets in between, and then Bane kind of stops Vengeance from shooting them both, and Bane kind of wants to look over some of his past mistakes, so he ultimately agrees to kind of work with them to fight off the Cobra Cult, who I mean, that storyline just kind of got was just kind of whatever. I mean, it's going to be wrapped up in JSA, I guess. And they all kind of work together. Damian is ultimately kind of cured of his stuff. Batman, who's very kind of has no problem showing his face to everyone else. I mean, Bane and Vengeance know who he is, and Maya does as well. But I'm just saying, there's Cobra Cult members around. Even Bane kind of helps them out at one point, and ultimately agrees to go back to Gotham and go to prison to kind of face up for his past crimes. So he's looking to find some semblance of peace, which is kind of an interesting way to take the character. We'll see how they follow up on it. Probably inevitably just goes back to pure villainy, but he's made some mistakes in his eyes, and he needs solitary confinement, and he needs to kind of make up for his past sins. So also, we kind of have the story that's a bit of it's framed with Damian meeting with his counselor, who's kind of telling the story about oh, how his dad and that went on a trip, and how things have kind of improved over the last several, I guess, years in terms of this book compared to where he was first at and whatnot. And it was kind of a peaceful moment, and the counselor kind of asked him tell me something about you. And we get this really beautifully drawn page by Juan Ferreira that kind of summarizes where the character was at from the start of Williamson's time with it, and kind of through to where we are at now with this Batman and Robin book. We see bits of the Lazarus tournament. Oh yeah, Respawn and all that. I remember him. And then we had the Neza stuff, and you see Flatline there a few times, you see Roz there, you see Talia and him at the grave, you see Connor Hawk, and then of course you see Damian and Bruce kind of on the same page for the first time, and Damian's kind of left wondering, like, I am what? And he ultimately draws this photo, this kind of bit of art. We also find out what happened with Maya Ducard, which I'm kind of disappointed, like, we didn't really get to see, like, a final bit with Maya. It was just kind of wrapped up, like, he asked her to be the protector of Lazarus Island with Goliath. So now we know where Goliath's going to be at. Now we know where Maya's going to be at. So at least that's a good place for her, because it was kind of watching over Lazarus Island, because he basically wanted to make that a sanctuary. Then the Devil Nezza stuff happened. But Damian has plans for all that stuff to be kind of figured out later on. I don't know if Philip Kennedy Johnson will be doing that in his run, or if that'll be something Williamson tackles later on. So there's that. And then, of course, we kind of have the final page where we have Damian's like, he's going off on a mission with Batman and all that. And ultimately it says, I am loved. So there is some really nice kind of artwork there. I'm sure some fans are ultimately going to probably complain that not every single member of the Bat family is in this picture, but it still, like I said, is a nice piece of artwork. And like I said, the pages right here between the Batmobile and the Rommobile, interesting design for the Batmobile right here. Probably not the strongest. It looks just like a normal car with a Batman logo on it. I kind of like that having more of a Batmobile design, but Damian's in his Robbomobile, which is basically just kind of a big, huge, like, dune buggy of sorts. So, but Damian still is a very talented artist, and you can see kind of everyone drawn in there. You get Maya, it looks like Barbara Gordon, it looks like Cass, I think Dick Grayson's there, maybe Jason Todd, maybe Tim, you got Alfred, Roz, you even looks like Rose and all that. There's so many different characters in this thing, but it doesn't look like it is purely everybody. So, but some people probably really complaining, like, where's Duke? Where's Kate Kane? Where's so-and-so? Where's blah, 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 blah. So, but, you can't please everyone with that stuff. So, yeah. In terms of this issue, I still liked it. I do feel like a lot of this stuff kind of wrapped itself up very quickly. Like the Cobra Cult stuff, like that was just kind of like, whatever, go read GSA. That just felt kind of like an afterthought. Bane wanting to kind of turn himself in, and he ends up at Blackgate Penitentiary, is kind of an interesting place to put him. But you kind of notice a trend with a lot of, like, villains and people Damian has confronted in the past, ultimately kind of like wanting to kind of make up for, there's just kind of a theme of villains kind of wanting to make some semblance of peace, or kind of make up for their past sins within the stuff that Williamson's been doing. I mean, you look like what happened with Talia, you looked at what happened with Roz, and now you look at with Bane, who's just kind of like done. Like, he just kind of wants to just go back into solitary confinement and think about his actions for a while. I'm not sure where the shift really happened, but Damian ultimately had granted him mercy in the last issue, and now he's just kind of like willing to go like peacefully. So like, it's kind of a similar thing to Roz. It was kind of happening. Roz is like, all right, I got to turn myself in. Like, I have failed consistently. And then now he's kind of like a ghost or following Flatline around. So, but yeah. Like I said, I still enjoyed a lot of this thing. I like the artwork. I do feel like it wrapped itself up a bit too quickly. I mean, that's the thing with a lot of Williamson's issues. They do feel kind of rushed. But for this particular storyline, I understand that the new creative comes in next month. But I feel like I would have liked a little bit more with this particular storyline, because it was actually probably the strongest of the Batman and Robin run. Because like the first thing with Man-Bat, let's be honest, could have been a bit better. There's a lot of the good moments I liked with Bruce and Damian. But compared to the Robin book, like the Batman and Robin book is just not nowhere near as good. But there's still some good stuff, and it really kind of kicked off in this last arc. But at least at least Williamson kind of went out on relatively a high note. It'll be interesting to see what Philip Kennedy Johnson does with this stuff. Very good writer. If you get the chance to read the Warworld saga, I know he's a big fan of the Al Ghul family. So we're going to get somebody who likes the Al Ghuls a lot. So I'm really excited to see what he does with the character. I feel like he's a good choice. It's probably one of the ones I would have went with to kind of take over as the new creative for this run. And then Javier Fernandez, and it's going to be more of a grounded detective story, which I'm all for. And we're going to see some interesting stuff. At least that's what I kind of hope happens with the next run. So I do hope they don't completely forget about like some of the stuff that was kind of set up in this thing, like Damian going to school, balancing his life of the superhero with like just kind of like his everyday stuff. I wonder if they're gonna hold on to that stuff. I guess from what I was hearing, it's not gonna like really incorporate a lot of the new characters from Robin. It's gonna kind of be doing some grounded stuff in Gotham with Bruce and Damian. So we'll see what he does with the character. I am very excited to see what happens, and I hope for some really good things. But yeah, it's going to be strange now that Williamson is no longer like holding the keys to the kingdom with Damian's character. I knew this day would come eventually, but now that we're finally here, it feels kind of surreal. And like I said, I'm thankful for what Williamson did because, like I said, Damian was in a very bad spot as a character before he took over. Now, he was doing fine when Peter J. Tomasi was writing him and improving. He had Super Sons and, you know, Patrick Gleason and all that. But of course, like I said, other writers come in, just bring the character down, completely ignore all sorts of developments. I'm hoping the transition from Williamson to Philip Kennedy Johnson, there still will be some of that, a little bit of that sass from Damian. I am kind of missing a little bit of that, like, kind of grit. I feel like it's kind of been taken away a little bit because, you know, Williamson tried to make him a lot more mellow and all that, but I still kind of miss a little bit of that Damian sass from time to time. So hopefully we get some of that back, but in like an organically done way, not to where it feels like regression, but, you know, a little bit of like that old Damian sass here and there, at least when he's talking to villains, would be kind of fun. Because like Damian like has a mouth on him, and it's very funny when it's utilized in the right situations. So I hope to see some of that brought back and just, you know, some good stuff with the character. But yeah, so thank you to Williamson, helping to save the character from where he was at beforehand. But you've done well. Some things could have been improved for sure, but compared to where it was at, like, it's night and day. So like Damian's in a pretty good place. So I'm sure he'll write the character again someday, because like I said, he's got all these other lingering plot threads that he didn't quite answer. I mean, we had the stuff with Respawn, which is just kind of forgotten about. We had the stuff with Flatline and Ra's al Ghul, which I'm sure we'll pick up in another storyline at some point, probably some event, because DC loves their events. And then, yeah, so that stuff lingering. I also, like I said, hope Philip Kennedy Johnson addresses the Teen Titans situation, because that's something that I still feel like needs a bit of closure, and then we can really fully move on. Because we got Bane in this last arc, which is good, and we pretty much got the closure with Alfred that we needed, and, you know, with his family and all that. But like I said, that Titans run, it's still kind of lingering until we get some sense of closure, because I know he's interacted with some of those members after the fact, but we really haven't like addressed all the problems of that run to the full extent. It only feels like DC just kind of wants to brush it under the rug like it never happened. So like I said, I do want to see Philip Kennedy Johnson tackle that at some point, because I was expecting Williamson to, but he never quite did. But I really want to see that addressed in the next run at some point. Again, I know a lot of fans don't like it, and granted, I didn't like it either, but I do want some semblance of closure, and I feel like that's the only way to do so. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this book. What did you think of it? Post your comments down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll be back later on with more DC comic books related stuff. But thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.